That time of year, Dusty. Free agency is quickly approaching in the NBA, and things might get a little bit more explosive than folks are willing to give it credence to, as you can witness here with Brian Windhorst on Pat McAfee.
The other thing he could do is he could go to the Clippers and make what I would call the Chris Paul. The Chris Paul did with the Clippers like 7, 8 years ago, when he said, here's what's going to happen. I'm either going to walk away for nothing or you're going to trade me to where I want to be traded. And then he would opt into his contract, opt into that player option, get traded to a team. That way the Clippers could get assets back and then sign an extension with that new team when the time comes down the line.
That's Brian Windhorst of ESPN talking about Paul George and his current positioning, as it were, in the NBA. Windhorst also goes on to talk about LeBron James, who is very likely to opt out of his contract. Does that mean he's going to leave? No, but it's a position of power and leverage. When you have that player option at the end of your deal as an older player, it is probably the most powerful position a player has in the league if they're still the high-end player like Paul George and LeBron James are.
Well, the LeBron, he should do it because he has the Lakers bent over, and the Lakers have no other option to give them exactly what he wants because of the situation that they put themselves in with the cap, which that should be of no surprise to anybody because we've been talking about that with their head coaching search ad nauseum because we even heard about the text message that Dan Hurley received from LeBron, which said, we'll see if I'm there, And that's what Hurley's like, yeah, okay, definitely not going there now.
Yeah.
He's going to use it as a leverage play. He's going to get a max deal. But I think it's really interesting that we are actually at a point now where you look at LeBron James and his pending free agency. Paul George is probably going to be is the guy that is more intriguing to me because if he does leave, and he should leave the Clippers at this point, if he goes to Philly, all of a sudden Philly looks incredible. And if they can cut the fat of Tobias Harris and bring in Paul George,
it's a hell of a swap.
That is an incredible swap for a Philly team that Tobias Harris was unplayable for them. And now you could add Paul George, and look, playoff P is a thing. He's bucked that as of
when he's been on the floor, he's been very productive.
Yeah, but it was really bad when he dubbed himself Playoff P.
Can't give yourself your own nickname, which is why
still
the whole Black Mamba thing I think is dumb with Kobe.
Can't do it. But I think if he lands at a place like Philly, and what are really Paul George's options at that point? Outside of Philadelphia, which does have the salary slot. Detroit, if you're just looking to get paid, right? Because Paul George does not make them a contender in the Eastern Conference.
No. God, no.
But that's a money play. Would Houston be an opportunity for Paul George? Because they've got a salary slot that they could. And Ime Udoka and Paul George, I mean, he may be a little bit too much of a hard ass for Paul George, but it could work there.
If you look at how things are shaping up.
Paul George to Portland.
There you go. This time, Bob. Now's when he comes here. There's been a weird thing out there of Paul George being open to returning to Indiana on a lesser deal.
Oh, that would be
Halliburton,
silly.
PG, Siakam, Turner. Now, what would end up happening there is it would be that sign and trade, and the Clippers would get Nembhard. I don't think they'd get Jarris Walker. I think they'd try to hold on to him. But Nembhard, Mathurin would probably be kind of the pieces acquired there, and then some salary filler on the back end.
That would be filthy.
But that's a top end that's pretty damn good. And Paul George is a guy that has shown he can play off the ball. Like, absolutely unequivocally. He can do that. And I think that would quickly make Indiana would they be I don't know if they'd be a title favorite, but they'd be a title contender.
I mean, hell, they'd be an Eastern Conference contender again. I mean, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals this year. You look at
healthy
Boston.
Halliburton.
Boston will be really damn good next year. I think by health, you hope that Milwaukee will be really damn good again next year. Philly, by health, could be really good again next year, and that gives a little bit more balance to the East and the West because I think that we had this conversation earlier about the Boston Celtics and why they're not getting the credit that we usually see teams of this magnitude of dominance get. I also think that a lot of people are going, well, you had to go through the Eastern Conference. Not paying any attention to the fact they are going to sweep the team that was the last team standing out of the West in the Dallas Mavericks, but that's just kind of the lot in life, in that with the injuries that had mounted up in the East, and look, Cleveland's young core. I mean, Donovan Mitchell pending, and hopefully he does sign that extension there, and you do see a little bit more time given. But Cleveland could make a big swing if they move on from, if they look at Mitchell and Garland and say, this is not going to be the backcourt pairing that gets us over the top, because of the fact that they it has a little bit different style, but a Dame and CJ feeling about it, where you have two styles that don't work together. They're not the same styles as either one of those players, but their two styles don't really work together very well. If they move on from Darius Garland after Mitchell signs an extension, or hell, they could make a sign and trade and sign the extension with Mitchell and then deal him somewhere else. Cleveland's going to be really dang good next year too.
Yes.
I mean, the nuts and bolts of an Eastern Conference being solid is there.
Sure.
And then Julius Randle comes back for the Knicks next year too.
Well, and 3 of the top 4 salary slots that are available in the NBA are in the East. Detroit has $64 million in cap space. Philly $55. Orlando essentially $49.5.
Orlando.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul George does not fit that book at all, because they have so many damn bigs, though.
Yeah, but
if it's a sign-in trade,
but even then, he's just a wing. What do they need? They need shooting, and what do they love? Size. If all of a sudden you're running out Markelle Fultz, Paul George, Franz Wagner, or Jonathan Isaac, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, like Banchero's like your de facto 5, or if you're going
ridiculously
Paul George, Franz, Paolo, Wendell Carter, you're going 6'4", 6'8", 6'10", 6'10", 6'11". Just big as hell.
That'd be scary.
I mean, they could do it. Be terrifying. They'd have Jonathan Isaac coming off the bench.
Yeah, but I also look at Paul George and I go,
11?
Is Paul George the shooter that they need?
I mean, he's an incredible shooter.
I know he is. I know he is, but do they need the knockdown pure shooter? Because Paul George, he can shoot threes. Will the offense work and make sense around him, though?
I think Paul George doesn't get the credit that he deserves as a player, particularly as not only just a scorer, but as a shooter. He is a career 44, 39, 86 guy. Career.
Pretty damn good.
That's shooting the hell out of the ball, the volume that he shoots. Like, legitimately, you take a look at the way his career has gone. His uptick, last 4 years, basically, he's shot 8 threes a game at around a 39% field goal percentage from 3.
And it's been climbing up every year. His 3-point attempts have gone up and up and up. He was, 8 this past year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's good volume for Paul George.
Yeah, I mean, his 3-point percentage the last few years, 41, 41, 35, it was injured season, 37, 41.
Yeah. Do they have the creators around him, though, that gives him those kick-out looks, though?
I think that's the other thing, is he's a guy who can be a guy who can, number one, create his own shot off the dribble, but also you're talking about Franz and Paolo. Guys that big, strong creators. Like Paolo, the big thing that Cleveland said was like, we're going to collapse on you because nobody around you can shoot. If all of a sudden Paolo's kicking out to a guy like Paul George, that's terrifying.
That's nice.
Now, is one guy solve everything? Probably not, but I think it's an interesting fit.
Yeah, it puts you in a matchup nightmare if you're that big.
But we talked
shooting guard Paul George.
Yeah, I mean, 6'8", 2 guard to be super nice. And remember, Paul's PG's a great defender.
Yeah,
it's an all defense kind of guy.
I love Paul George.
Yeah,
and that's the
thing.
He's
a little corny, but man, he's a damn good player.
He doesn't get any of the credit he deserves either, because you hear time and time again, young players in the NBA say they want to model their game after Paul George.
Mm-hmm.
Paul George.
A lot
not
of them
LeBron, not Steph, Paul George.
Because he does everything. He plays defense. He puts the ball on the floor. Like, there's a smoothness to his game. There's a lot of stuff there.